I kind of see like this theme. I definitely agree to that point that marketing is definitely a field where you like to test and like really trial and error a lot of things. And this kind of takes us to this point of like this concept of being a generalist overall, right? Marketing and field in general is a very generalist type of position to be in any industry. So I'm kind of curious, and like we talked about this like kind of off camera before, because we had a person on our podcast actually, for example, who was considered a specialist, right? He's an SEO specialist by his day career, but has like a side SEO business. And he told us how hard it was for him as a journalist to like sell and explain their skills. Of course, it's doable, but it's not the most easiest thing. And since you told me like you consider yourself as a generalist, how do you explain that like to, let's say, a prospect, client, or just in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I found, because I 100% understand, that SEO specialists challenge, right? Like it can be hard because, as we talked about, kind of just before we started recording here, like you want to have like a single value prop. Like what's that one sentence that's going to have people understand what you're talking about or what you're selling or what you're writing, whatever it is. And so that's harder to do as a generalist because you're like, well, I do everything. Like that's not helpful to businesses in most cases, right? It's not helpful to businesses. But where I've really, fine-tuned my pitch and what I found success in is primarily rooted in the people that I'm talking to. So that pitch just works a lot better for small businesses that don't really have much of a marketing program, or they may have they may have some stuff stood up, but it's all like it's all held together with glue and toothpicks or they have nothing, right? And so what the value that I've been able to provide to companies like that is like, we can go in any direction here. I've touched all of it. I've seen how starting with some things can hurt other things, or I've seen how like which levers you need to pull at the right times, depending on the business goals, the market, budget, like all that type of stuff. I've experienced like which of these levers you have to pull. But at the end of the day, like you're trying to activate yesterday. So we can start on one thing at any time and then start to build out systems and more scalability by adding on other things that a generalist would be better fit at, because they at least have some surface level knowledge of how those things interact together. I have pretty surface level knowledge of like everything in marketing, but there are some things that I have like much deeper expertise in, just depending on what it is. And so usually like when I'm talking to like startup founders or things like that, when they're just like, hey, like I'm thinking about hiring, this type of person, I'm always like, well, what have you done so far? What's your team like right now? And then if they want to go, if they're like, well, we know that email works really, really well for us. It's like, okay, then you may want to hire like an email specialist. You may want to hire someone who's like incredibly good at that, if you have someone that's able to, wear a few more hats and cover everything else.
Welcome to The Cabin, a podcast where we interview diverse minds to learn about their paths to building skills and creative confidence. I'm Sid.
And I'm Ibra. Let's dive in.